Good morning. Thank you for joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida at Launch Pad 39A for the STS-133 Terminal Countdown Demonstration Test Pad Q&A. It's my pleasure to introduce the commander of Space Shuttle Discovery, Commander Steve Lindsay.
Thanks. Well, good morning. Thanks for coming out this morning. It's great to be here for TCDT and to go through that again. And the vehicle's looking great. All of our activities are going great. We are basically trained and ready to fly. Just a few more weeks of activities we need to go through, and then we'll be hopefully back here for an on-time launch on November 1st. I'm the commander of the mission, and what I would like to do is just kind of pass it down to each crew member and let each one talk a little bit about what they're going to be doing on their flight, a little bit about their background. And so first thing, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Bowe, who's a pilot on the flight.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning. Name's Eric Bowe. I'm the pilot from Atlanta, Georgia. Background Air Force test pilot. On the mission, I'm going to be working as a pilot. I'll be working with Steve on all the piloting tasks for ascent, entry, rendezvous, and docking. Looking forward to do the undocking and fly around. Also be working with Alvin and Steve on the shuttle robotic arm, and also the PMM outfitting once we have it berthed to station. And now I'd like to hand it off to Alvin.
Thanks, Eric. Good morning, everybody. I'm Alvin Drew, and I'll be working as Mission Specialist 1, working on the flight deck for ascent for the mission, then working along with Tim Copra as our two spacewalkers doing the two EVAs during the mission as well. As Eric mentioned, Steve, Eric, and I will be working the shuttle robotic arm for inspections and helping off with the handoff of ELC-4 to the space station's robotic arm for installation. I'm going to hand off now to Tim, who will talk about what he's going to do.
Hi, everybody. Really looking forward to this mission. My name is Tim Copra, and I'm a mission specialist too. I'll be working on the flight deck for ascent and entry, and then on flight days 5 and 7, be working with Alvin Drew for our two spacewalks. Be also operating the robotic arm with Mike and Nicole on some of the mission components to install to the payloads, and we're looking forward to it. Going to pass it off to Mike Barrett.
Well, good morning. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I assume if you know what TCDT stands for, you're already a rabid space fan, so thanks for coming. I'll be on the mid-deck as one of the mission specialists. I'll be working rendezvous and a lot of robotics. I'll get to spend fractions of 4 days in the cupola working that magnificent station robotic arm, 2 of which I'll be flying Tim around on the arm, as you mentioned. I'm really looking forward to that. And working also as load master to get things transferred to and from the station. It'll be great to get back there. I'm going to pass it off to Nicole Stott.
Good morning, everybody. Nicole Stott, also one of the mission specialists. Really happy to be here. My primary background is, and I think that has helped prepare me the most for flying in space, is the time I had here at Kennedy Space Center in shuttle operations. Had the opportunity to work here for about 10 years. On this flight, Discovery, which I'm really excited to be flying on again, I'll be working with Mike for getting the vehicle ready after we get to orbit, and then working some of the docking system activities for rendezvous and docking. And then with Tim and Al, I get to be the boss of them from the inside while they're outside doing their EVAs, so they have to listen to me for that. And then, like these guys mentioned, we'll be doing some of the major robotics activities, moving the ELC-4 from the payload bay. So really looking forward to it, and thanks for coming out.
Okay, with that, I guess we're ready to take any questions you might have for us.
Thanks. Bill Harwood, CBS News. I'll start with you, Commander. It's the last flight of Discovery. There's only, I guess, 2 flights after yours. Maybe some perspective on Discovery last mission.
Well, I think it's bittersweet. You've probably heard that a lot. For me personally, this will be my 3rd flight on Discovery. Flown it twice before. First one was STS-95, which was when we took Senator John Glenn back into space, and then flew it again on a second return-to-flight test mission after Columbia. And Discovery's a workhorse, the fleet leader, a number of flights, done a lot of famous flights, all the return-to-flight test missions that have been involved, and yet when you, I was telling some employees here yesterday, when you walk inside at a Discovery and see it still looks like a new car even after almost 30 years of service. And so it's a great machine, a great vehicle. Each one has its own personality, and Discovery's no different than that. But as far as the last flight, it's a privilege, I think, for us to be able to fly it on the last flight, and it's a real tribute to the folks here and in the other manned spacecraft centers for all they've done to keep these vehicles flying and allowing being able to do all the things they do. So I think for us it's a privilege to be able to fly that last flight on Discovery, but it's also sad because after that it's retired. I just hope that when it goes to the Smithsonian that it's laid out in a way such that the public can actually go through it and see and get a feeling of what it was really like to fly it, and that's something that'll always be in our memories.
Thanks. And one more from me, and it's really for both Tim and Al. If you guys could give us a little synopsis of EVAs 1 and 2, the content, maybe one of you do one and one do the other, I'd appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll talk about EVA 1. So it's interesting how this all evolved. We started out with an 8-day mission. It was going to be a long weekend on Space Station, and then it evolved into 2 pretty demanding spacewalks, and really excited about it, especially because it's so integrated with robotics. So the first EVA, as many of you know, the stage crew, the folks on Space Station replaced a pump module when it broke and did a great job doing that. And they left the disabled pump module installed on a place on station that's not great for bringing it back home. So Mike is going to fly me up to that location, and we'll install that back on a place on Space Station where they can pull that off and put it in the payload bay on a future shuttle flight. So while I'm doing that, Al's going to be working with venting this pump module because since this module has some residual ammonia inside the tank, we need to get rid of that to put it in the payload bay on a future mission. So we'll be working with that, and Al's going to get that all set up. And then after we do that coordinated activity, Al and I are going to go out to the starboard side of Space Station and install a wedge that allows this boom to be in a position that allows future vehicles to come up, and that won't be in the way for those missions. And then finally, the big task we have is installing this extension on the rail, on the truss elements, and that allows the mobile transporter to move the entire length of the vehicle for future maintenance activities. So that, in a nutshell, is what we plan on doing on EVA 1.
For EVA 2, what we'll do is that we're going to set up for venting that pump module during EVA 1. The first thing we'll do after getting out the door on EVA 2 is to actually vent that module, allow it to clean up so we can get it cleaned up later on in the mission itself. While that's going on, Tim's going to head out to the outboard side of the Columbus module and retrieve the LWAPA payload that's been out there for a while. They need to get that back. He'll get to ride the robot arm out to the payload bay and install that, and then come back and clean up from there. Tim will do further work on the special purpose dexterous manipulator, working with the camera stanchions and putting lens covers on it. And meantime, I'll be out working on the ELC-4, which goes in. We've got a thermal cover that needs to be removed, so I'll get that back off of that and bag it up. I'll continue to clean up from the stage EVA that Doug Wheelock and Tracy Caldwell Dyson did. They left some bags out there on the front part of the mobile service system. I'll get those bagged up as well and get ready to bring those back. Finally, I'll head over to the starboard side and install a work light. It's called a CETA light to light up the interior of the truss for internal maintenance. And then we'll get rid of some of the insulation that's out on the outside of Node 3. Then Tim and I will tag back up towards the end of the mission there and get ready to head back in. Something missing else you had there, Tim, that you had on yours?
Message in a bottle.
And last but not least, of course, we have a Japanese payload. It's called Message in a Bottle, where we're going to capture some of the vacuum of space to bring back for the Japanese Space Agency.
Hi, I'm Jim Siegel. I'm with the Celebration Independent newspaper, and this being the last voyage of Discovery, I wondered if you had any special events or ceremonies planned while you're up in space, or are you bringing any special mementos with you to commemorate this last flight? Or is it a surprise?
Well, I don't think you can take a final voyage of a ship of exploration and not take some moments to celebrate its history. And I think many people know that our ship Discovery, which is a ship of exploration, was named after several predecessor ships, also named Discovery, all ships of exploration. So it's the culmination of a great heritage, really, and we hope there are future ships bearing that name. We will be carrying a medallion from the Royal Society that was struck in honor of Captain Cook. And we'll be doing a little commemorative, just a recorded commemorative of that. And on Cook's third voyage, there was a ship called Discovery. And that's the main ship for which our ship Discovery took its name. And we'll be doing a few other taped commemoratives on it as well. But again, you cannot not celebrate the history and the heritage of this ship, and we plan to continue that certainly after we land.
Great. And second question, this being the last voyage again, when you return to Earth, are you going to be doing anything special to button it up, to prepare for, whatever, for storage, anything special compared to other flights that you might have been on?
We're probably not the best ones to be able to answer that question. The way it works is Kennedy Space Center basically gives us the vehicle at launch, and we only get it while we're on orbit. And as soon as we wheel stop, it goes back to Kennedy Space Center, and they own it again. So we're just borrowing it from them. But after it lands, they're going to have to go through some processing to safe all the systems, to get all the hazardous chemicals off and all those sorts of things, and they're going to do some additional preparations. But the plan for Discovery right now, the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum has laid claim to Discovery, and as I understand it, that's where it's going to head. And so they have to do some preparations, have to put it back on the 747 carrier aircraft to bring it there. But as far as all of the detailed preparations are going to happen, I'm not familiar with exactly what all those are going to be.
Thank you.
Hi, Dan Billow from WESH-TV. A question for Nicole. You mentioned your experience here at the Kennedy Space Center, and you're obviously aware that a lot of people are getting laid off. Can you just give me your perspective on that, your thoughts on that as far as the end, maybe from a perspective of someone who knows the people here so well?
Well, I think that you can't answer that question without the word sad coming to mind. I think it is certainly going to be a sad time. We've already seen quite a few people walk out the door. We've had the chance to come down here and visit several times throughout our training flow. And I think what impresses me the most is the spirit that is here with these people. And it's been here forever. I mean, this is definitely one of these places where people come to work because it's a heart and soul thing. It's not just a job for them. And you see that in every aspect of the work that goes on here. And we are truly thankful for that. And I think it gives us confidence in the vehicle and the workforce and in the mission that we're going to fly, and know that we'll have success because of them. And I think, it's just really nice to see when we go out to a facility, knowing that some of these very special people are going to be leaving, and still to talk to them and feel their excitement about the participation and the opportunity that they've had to work on this magnificent program. I mean, look at the vehicle behind us. You cannot be anything but impressed by what you see here, both in the hardware and the people. So, yes, sad, but it's really nice to see the real spirit that comes from the people that have worked on it.
Kevin Oliver with WFTV. Another question for Nicole. Before the Atlantis had the extra mission, you were scheduled to be the last female to ride on a space shuttle. Does that distinction carry anything to you? Mean anything?
Well, for me personally, it's really nice to have the opportunity to fly again on the shuttle. I'd like to think that we're not really looking at it that way anymore in terms of women flying or men flying. It's we work as a really nicely integrated crew, and for me, it's personally nice to know that I don't feel that as a distinction. I hope that what we do with these final missions is celebrate this program and the vehicles, and kind of instead of looking at individuals and their last opportunity to fly on it.
Hi, Michelle Spitzer with Florida Today. Nicole, you can keep the mic. We're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the ISS being continuously occupied. I know you spent some time up there. Can you talk about what was the hardest adjustment for you to life up there? Was it eating, sleeping, communicating with family?
Everything about the station experience for me was better than I expected it to be. And I had very high expectations of what it was going to be like. And there's a couple other guys here who could speak to this as well. But I think ultimately the most difficult thing is just not having your family there. I mean, that was it. Although our communications that we have set up there now are really wonderful. You can call down on essentially on a phone to talk to your family. We have video conferences once a week. There's email. So there's really an open line of communication that certainly helps. I've always been one that in these training experiences that we have and getting ready to fly, there's such cool things that we get to do. And it could be, I think you could use the word perfect if you could have those special people in your life sharing it a little bit more with you. So.
Open question for any of the crew. I'm Mark Ratterman from Talking Space. And my question's about how you do the impossible. If a friend or a neighbor, maybe a student in school or university, asks how to move beyond what seems difficult or impossible, from your experience and success, your education, training, what advice would you give? How do you do the impossible?
That's a really good question. You know, really, I think we don't look at this as the impossible because the way we've trained and everything else, and that's kind of the things out in life that look like impossible, you do them one step at a time. You know, you kind of set your goals, you kind of look at the big picture, see how things that you want to do, and then you just attack those problems day in and day out. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things is that every day you got to get up and do your best. And as you keep doing that, especially with a team, you kind of get the synergistic effect. You know, one person can do one thing, but you know, when you have a whole group of people, I mean, every time we look at this amazing machine and you go, it's amazing that humans can build something like that we can take this ship up into space and make it happen. And so to me, the thing that really makes that difference is that we have a whole group of people that are working together, that are trying to do these hard things, and then they're no longer hard, they're not impossible, they become easy. So, you know, for the people out there that are trying to do those things, you know, set your goals high and keep working hard, and you'll get there, and the impossible will be possible.
And one more question from me for the commander or pilot. Would you mind describing an RTLS for me? Go through it step by step, if you would, and, you know, flying backwards, what would that be like?
Well, it's obviously something we hope never to have to do, and just to kind of explain, an RTLS is if for some reason normally what would get us into this, it's a return to launch site profile. Normally what would get you into this kind of scenario would be a loss of an engine, a main engine. We have the 3 main engines plus the solid rocket boosters. So one of those main engines failed very early in flight. We'd be returning back here at Kennedy Space Center. And basically the profile is a pretty interesting one. You kind of alluded to it. You basically fly up, and what we're trying to do is basically burn out all the fuel in the tank so that we can separate from it safely, and then obviously be in a profile that we can come back and land the space shuttle back here, the orbiter back at Kennedy Space Center. So there's definitely a lot of dynamic phases of flight. It would be a pretty exciting ride, and like I said, hopefully it will be one that we don't have to do. But we're well trained in it. It's amazing the amount of detail that we've gone into to actually make it happen. There's some interesting parts of the flight as you're going away from this. You're actually pointing back towards the site but flying backwards because we've already built up so much speed leaving the launch site, and then eventually our velocity turns around and we start flying back towards the launch site. Again, all the timing is working to get the external tank empty so that we can separate from it, and then we come back into land. Steve, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say the thing that's the most unique about it is, as Eric mentioned, was a part where you're essentially flying backwards. You're well out of the atmosphere, so you're not really flying into your plume per se, but you're flying backwards. And as your relative velocity to the launch site gets slower and slower and slower, you're continually dropping the whole time. You eventually reach a point which we call VREL, or relative velocity of 0, where you're actually dropping straight down at about almost 1,000 feet per second. So you're dropping straight down, and then eventually you thrust out of this and you start climbing, and we usually hit about Mach 6.5 or something like that right when the engine's cut off with the tank empty, as Eric mentioned, because the most critical part of that is making sure we separate with an empty tank so that we don't recontact with the tank. Once you do that and if you're off the tank successfully, then you kind of hit a standard profile coming in to enter, and when you come in and land just like we would on a regular flight. So it's very dynamic. It's a certified flight mode, which means the vehicle is certified to do this if we were ever to need to, and hopefully we never will.
And just quickly, are you heads up at VREL?
Yes. Yeah, you stay, you're essentially your head's down. As we go out over the water, we're heads down. And in this RTLS, once we declare it, it goes to, what it does is we're still thrusting away, and the system is calculating how much fuel, how much percentage of fuel remaining we should pitch back and start thrusting back. And once we hit that place, it's called powered pitch around, the vehicle actually pitches over the top. So now we're heads up, heading back, even though we're flying backwards. That's how it works.
That sounds like a piece of cake.
Piece of cake.
I really don't even know how to follow that question. Let me ask this one, though, for the commander. You guys originally had a very different flight. You were going to be the last mission in the program, and then, for no fault of anyone's, it ended up being the next to last flight in the program. How did that affect training, and how difficult was it to shift gears like that kind of in mid-flow to get ready for this flight? Thanks.
Well, as I think Tim mentioned, we started out as an 8-day mission with no EVAs. Our objective, in a nutshell, at that point was we were still going to carry the permanent multipurpose module. We were going to carry the ELC up, and our job was to outfit station and leave space station in the best possible configuration for after we left logistically, and that was our whole mission. We had the AMS flight, alpha magnetic spectrometer flight. The payload got delayed, so they moved out past us, and then there's the authorization bill at least has authorized a final flight. So as far as our preparations go, we actually took a launch slip because of some of the changes going on and spreading out the flights a little bit. And then we added the 2 spacewalks. So the last 2-3 months have gotten a lot busier as we had to add in these spacewalks we didn't plan to train for. But all in all, we've been able to keep a pretty consistent schedule. And as far as a crew getting ready to do a different mission, really not a big deal for us. You expect changes late. Things change on space station. We're trained to deal with those changes. We even specifically train more skills-based these days than we used to. We used to train more task-based. And through all the skills-based training that we've done, particularly in the EVA area, we're able to adapt to late changes and handle that in our flow. So from a preparation standpoint, it really hasn't been that big of a deal.
That's all the time for questions we have. If we please have the crew stand for a photo opportunity, we'll get you back to training. Thank you for your time.